Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. So, I got such good comments on my shirt that I figured I'd wear one of the, the festive, like the Hawaiian type of type of shirts. I think that, this, when I come out to the Philippines, I think this is what I'm going to wear. I'm going to give me a whole bunch of like Hawaiian shirts and I might surf. I don't know. Anyway, for all my people in the Philippines, mabuhay to you, kamusta na? Ingat lagi, hamasao tayo. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video. Appreciate it very much, guys. So for anybody who is coming from Azerbaijan, I will say salam to you and chok sagol. Appreciate you guys very much for coming by and taking a look at my video. Merci beaucoup, people in Paris. Mes amis. Okay, so if you guys are ready to go, I have the round 5 game between Teimour Radjabov and Wesley. So it's an interesting game. It has like some little twists and turns in it. So if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we have for the game. All right, so we got D4. Knight comes to F6. We got C4, E6, knight to F3. This always should be familiar to you guys. I mean, you guys have been seeing this for like a million times. We got D5, knight coming to C3. We got bishop to B4. We got bishop to G5, and then we have pawn takes C4. So we have the Queen's Gambit decline, Rogozin, and this is the Vienna variation. And so, this is pretty much allowing white to get the full center. Oops, not like that. To get the full center, E4, D4. And as you guys know, of course, C5 is going to be coming at some point. So just like spoiler alert for you guys. We do see E4 comes immediately. We see H6, bishop takes F6, queen takes F6, and then we see bishop takes C4. So as you guys, of course, know, a Queen's Gambit is not actually a gambit. It's just called that because it's kind of like a delayed capture a lot of the times. But we do see C5. As I promised you, C5 is coming. Now, after E5 and queen comes to D8, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. I mean, you can always take the pawn here. And you're not really worried about this because, the rook is going to take back and you got a rook on a nice open file. You do also have the ability to push the pawn. So, pushing the pawn is what Radjabov decides to do in this position. So we see pawn takes D5, bishop takes D5, and then we see bishop takes C3, pawn takes C3. And we do have an isolated pawn here, but, it's not the end of the world. You do have a bishop and stuff with a little bit of scope. So we see castles by black, castles by white, knight to C6, and then we have queen to B3. And this is like kind of like the next move that comes up. I think it's kind of like a joke. I think this has to be like what Wesley is thinking when he makes this move. So we have knight to A5, and like the knight is asking the queen, like, what are you doing on B3? Like, I mean, why are you there? And so Radjabov says, okay, never mind, I'm going to go back to D1. I thought that was funny when I saw that. I was like, queen to B3, yeah, okay, you're doing some development. Knight to A5 is like, what are you doing? Like, why are you here? And then the queen's like, all right, fine. I'm going to go back to D1. I just thought that was funny, man. Maybe I think it's funny only. But anyway, we got bishop to E6, which is the novelty of the game. In the past, we've actually seen knight coming back to C6. But we do see bishop to E6 this time. Now, if you want, no, I guess you can't do that. That's true. Forget what I was about to say. Let's just move on. Bishop takes E6, pawn takes E6, and then we see queen coming up to A4. Radjabov is saying, hey, man, I'm going to do what I want with my queen. I'm going to put it on A4. So the knight gets chased back to C6. We see rook A to B1, which, of course, like, we're not going to just, capture this pawn because, like, black is going to defend it. So we do see queen coming to E7. We see queen to B5. We got rook down to F7. We see rook F to D1, and then we see rook A to F8. Now, the intention is like very clear that at some point, black is going to want to sacrifice the exchange on F3. You can see the tension is building up. So that is something that we are anticipating to be coming up. So we see rook to D3, protecting that. Now, you actually don't have to defend against it in this position. You can always go like rook to H1. And then after you would see rook takes, pawn takes, queen coming to F7. You can see rook to G1, queen coming to F3 with check, and then rook blocking on G2. And once you can unpin your king, you do have a nice open file for your rooks. So you're looking at a pretty good situation here for white. It's not like winning or anything, but I mean it's definitely not. You're definitely not too worried about it as white. So we do see rook to d3, just trying to add some extra, you know, comfort to this knight here. Because the knight was crying. It was like, hey, man, I'm kind of sad. Like, help me out. So then the rook came up and said, I got you, bro. So then we see a6, getting a nice tempo on the queen. Queen to a4. We see rook to f4. So we're, you know, white is getting actually kicked around a little bit in this position, right? So the queen comes back to d1. You see b5. And so, you know, with every single move, black is just improving their position as much as they can. You know, they got these pawns rolling. And as you guys can see, you know, you do have a majority over here on the queen side. You do have this file all the way open. So, you know, you just really kind of need to just maximize your pieces. And that's exactly what black is doing. So we see queen coming to d2 for white. Queen coming to e8. We see rook over to e1. We see queen to g6. And then we see king to h1. You know, the pressure is definitely mounting for white in this position. And they are in a very, very defensive position right now. So the queen comes to f5, just adding extra pressure to this pawn here. So like I said, as you guys can see, with every move that black is making, like they're just adding pressure and adding pressure to the position of white. So we actually see rook to d6 in this position. And we've come to actually a very critical point. I got two questions for you. First, what is a very, very killer move, and more importantly, a killer idea in the position, and what actually happens in the game? Because there's actually two different things. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you could guess either one of these moves. All right, cool. So for those of you that said rook takes f3, you would be correct that that is what happened in the game. He did go ahead and sacrifice the exchange here. So, you know, we saw pawn takes and then queen took on f3 with check. But there was actually a much stronger move in the position, and it was a pretty decisive move. So after rook came to d6, you actually had the ability to go knight to e7. And the idea is bringing this knight to a better square and just adding that much more pressure onto white. And so you would probably see rook to d3 and not knight to d5 immediately, but actually pushing pawn to c4 first. Just making sure that this pawn can't get pushed once you do place the knight on d5. Not like it's going to be a problem, but it's just like way more accurate to do that. After rook came to d6, then you would be seeing knight to d5. And then white has a question. I mean, you know, do you want to sacrifice your own exchange for this knight? Because this knight is really, really monstrous in the middle of the board. It's almost like illegal for it to be there. Like, it's like, man, you just can't have this, you know, you can't have this this knight just, you know, just entrenched in the middle of the board like that. But, you know, this was a really, really nice idea. It was also possible, maybe slightly less strong, to actually just be wanting to bring the knight over here. You know, to add more pressure onto this this area here. But like I said, that is not what actually happened in the game. So Wesley So did miss that opportunity. And he did go rook takes f3. We see pawn takes f3, queen takes f3 with check. We see king to g1, queen coming to g4, king over to h1. We see queen to f3 with check, king comes to g1, queen to g4 with check, king to h1, queen to f3 with check, king to g1, and queen to f5. And I'm not honestly sure what queen to f5 was, because they had a repetition at this point in the game. So I think they played like another move or two, and maybe the arbiter like stopped the game or something like that. When I watched the coverage, it wasn't really clear as to like why, you know, the game, you know, went on another two moves after the repetition. So I think maybe one of them just called it and said, hey, man, we had a rep at some point, you know. But yeah, that was that game. And I think it was, man, it was really kind of interesting to see, like, you know, the chance that Wesley So had. He's definitely in this tournament so far had, you know, had quite a few chances in some games and stuff like that. And it's been a real roller coaster tournament going on. So that is that game. And as always, for my people in the Philippines, I'm gonna try to get these good mornings. I think I'm doing better with them. So maanyong buntag, mayad na agahan, nainbag na bigat, masantiyo siya kawasan, marhe na aga, buenos dias. I have maanyong aga, mapian na uma, kapian kapu no dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, my big abukla, maraja na buntag, maraya my nat. And then it was, I think it's Mapia Naaga, Malpe Naaga, and then Kasanyangan CLUB. So as you guys can see, I only literally have two more left until I'm like pretty much just spitting them all out. And as you guys know that have been watching my stuff, I'm doing a lot better now. But I appreciate it very much, and I'll see y'all next time.